Previously on this little bike, 8-ball. This is the third installment and final finish line of the 8-ball, and no pun intended, finish line tires, wheels, woo! Yes, we will go over this and details of wrapping this up after this.
Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe.
Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy. On this old bike series, we're doing an 8-ball cruiser, which is actually a 3-speed, not 8-speed. Doesn't make, yeah, whatever. In any case, we did several different things. One is taking it apart, identify what needed to be replaced. And second is detailing the frame and getting ready for the parts being reassembled and the new parts as well. So what I ordered was new grips. So something that kind of matches the white and black. That's actually came in pretty well. I also had a new chain, which I actually had to buy 2 chains to match the length of this particular chain. And last but not least, got some little plugs that go, or not plugs, but these are threaded nuts, and they're actually spikes to make it a little more, I guess, cool-ish, lowrider style. Let's dive into putting this back together. There's also like a cap that's going on the shifter. We needed to do that. We had to replace the bottom bracket, but I had one of those in stock, so that's not really a big deal. And we painted the crank arms so they don't look so, well, ugly, and it looked a lot better. In addition to, I painted the pedals. Yeah, pretty cool. Actually worked really well. I used a farmer grade tractor paint, which is good for parts like this. Definitely. It has enough sheen to it. Actually, it's pretty strong paint. That's what I would recommend putting on pieces like this. It's not a detail paint, it's construction type material paint type thing, if you will. So without further ado, let's, I got to pull this chain fender off to get the crank, and then we're going to lace up the shifter through the frame, or underneath the frame it bolts on. Once we get those on there, we're going to measure out the chain, cut that to length, and then put on the wheels, get that tensioned up, and I'll show a couple little tricks on that. And lastly, put on the grips. I think that's about it. And with all that, I did forget one thing. And one thing that's pretty cool for cruisers is the kickstand. This does not have a kickstand on it. It has a mount bracket welded into the frame. But in order to measure that, I got to get it back together. So it will be 99.8% done. Then I'll just order the kickstand and something really cool. Hopefully I can measure it right. Something, like braided metal of some sort. Seen some cool ones out there. But there's different lengths, so I want to make sure I get the right one so it doesn't tilt the wrong direction. That's the weird thing about kickstands. So let's dive into this. So I put the fender back on there just because I just wanted to see what it looked like. So what we're going to do is we can just unscrew this one bolt here. That opens it up so I can get the crank on there. All right, here's our crank. It's a 4-slot. It's going to set it on there first to make sure we're all good to go. And you got to unscrew the fender back in there through the holes of the chain ring. So this takes I believe, an 8 mil to get that in there. These are the crank bolts, and it has a cap that goes on top of that, just as a cool looking plate deal. Grab the other crank, make sure it's going the right direction, outward. Well, there's only one way I can get it on there, so. Voila! Gonna grease these a little bit so they actually come off again. Onto the pedals, you definitely want to thread these, and one's right and one's left, so it'll be an R and an L, so you want to make sure that's correct. And the pedal, to get pedals back on, pedal forward to take off, pedal backwards to put on. That's the tightening mechanism. Been doing it for so long that way, I couldn't tell you which one's right threaded or left threaded. That's just forward or backwards. That's how I roll. All right, here's the shifting mechanism. That goes to the rear hub. This goes to the bar. And I believe there's 5 of these little plates that you need to guide through. And they are threaded into the actual frame. So you just do one at a time and kind of install them what makes the most sense as in direction. Reason being of the housing or the cable being one or the other. And I'm going to get it in there a little bit. Then I'm going to put a little drop of Tri-Flow on the threads. What that's going to help is keep it from getting rusty. But I'm just going to, not all the way tight, just enough to hold it in place so I can get all these other guys lined up. And I want to be mindful of the crank here and make sure it doesn't bind up with anything and the direction it's going to go. I got 3 more underneath here. It's a good thing I have 3 more bolts so I don't lose any of them. And these are kind of already flattened in one direction, so whenever this was installed or built, they had a clear vision of how this cable was supposed to be. So lucky for me, I don't have to reinvent the wheel on this. Just make sure I get it back on there proper way. And I'll probably tighten these down at the end when I have everything installed, like the wheel and everything, to make sure I am not missing something or it's not binding. Do not want it to bind. So looks to me it wants to go that way. So we're going to go that way. Yeah. So I want to position this shifter so I turn the bars. When I turn the bars, it's not binding anywhere, so that looks pretty good. And I'm going to put that cap on too. So you got to use a micro screwdriver, Phillips. Woo! And you don't, if you're taking these off to look at them, man, you don't want to lose that screw because they'll hit the floor and be taken off into a whole new dimension and you'll never find it. Ooh, that's kind of dirty. So while we're here, we're gonna put a little refresher in there and wipe out the dust. Like so. And it's it'd be your basic derailleur cable that's in this guy. And if any luck, this guy will just snap into place. Yep, bam. Like new. It's all shiny. I actually bought this for another cruiser, so I'll have to buy a separate one. This one was all yucky. Boom. There we go. All right. Okay, so this is one long chain. So unfortunately, they don't sell the chain this length. what I'm going to do is use the master link to splice one piece on there. See how cool that is? Yeah. That's the ticket. So we're going to measure this up. Link by link. This short. Good thing these chains are not too expensive. So, since I have two master links, it's going to have two master links, which is fine. Master links on these particular chains are actually stronger than the actual main link, so, or equivalent to. I mean, I could technically push the pin back through, but may not get it just right. This gives me extra chain. If I need to do another bike, I'll just buy another one. And I do have a few cruisers to work on, so there we have it. Now these master links is your old school master link. Push this through, both sides, put your plate on, and this just snaps into place. When you're kids, I believe my pliers will open up wide enough. I can just almost. Come on. There you go. Just like so. Now install into the bike. Alright. So you gotta be mindful it goes through the fender part here, up and over. I'm gonna try to guide it on the chain ring. And then I could put it together. Like so. Oh, I want to make sure I don't bind myself up, so, or put it on backwards. And I want to have the pin plate on the outside of the bike, not the inside. Reason being is you want to be able to take it off looking at the bike from the side. And use your, kind of make sure everything is sandwiched together just right. Kind of what I do when you're at an angle. There we go. Voila. Woo. There we go. Oh. Now for the wheel. So I got this fancy guy. It's only going to replace the brake arm side because this one's going to be covered by the shifter mechanism. So this one's going to go here. So I'm only going to be using 3 of the 4. This is where we've all wrestled with single speed wheels. So first you get alignment on there, and you get the wheel lined in, then you got your brake arm on this side, and you want that to be kind of in position, and then you want to leave it lower and just kind of tighten it down so it kind of holds place while you do the rest of the work. The rest of the work means getting that band clamp put on place. So you tighten the non-drive side up a little bit so it holds its place too. Then, here's the trick. So you have this brake, right? It has to have this band clamp on it. So you hook and tighten this up first. I put a little rubber tape around it so it won't scar it like it did before. Ah. Okay, so you get this threaded, but not locked down all the way. Everything's like loose, 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 and all of a sudden you tighten everything up. Now we're going to get the chain back on the chainring. By ramping it up on there, like so. Then we loosen and tighten these and walk the wheel backwards. So I put my left hand on the front of the tire, force direction, this direction. And you can tighten and loosen and rock it back and forth. And eventually you want it to be center. And you want the chain to be pretty taut. Okay, and here's the tricky bit. And then you tighten down both sides so the wheels center to the dropout and the wheel and everything. And here, so here's the tricky bit. The chain ring is on the cog in the back and it's on the crank on the front chain ring. They're not perfectly round. There's a slight oval to them. So when you pedal, you'll have a tightness and a looseness. So you want that tightness to be as tight as it can, but not binding. So it feels loose, but you don't want it too loose because if it's too loose, the chain's going to pop off. So we want to test that. So by feeling it, see that looseness? And there's a little bit of tightness, but not too much. So we want to go back a little bit more. So I loosen this side up, push the wheel over, jams that up, drop out, tighten it, loosen the non-drive, move it center again, tighten it. That should give us a little more tension. There we go. And when it coasts, you'll feel it go up and down. So you don't want it to be binding to the point that it stops. That's the tight portion. Still snug, but not too tight. So I think that's good. I double check and tighten this up. Make sure they're both very extremely tight. And now we're going to put the pin for the shifter. And this is pretty simple. We just tighten this little screw onto the nut. You take this and you definitely put some grease on it. That guy, the flange portion's out. You want to be able to get it in the other way. This goes in and out. Now it changes the gears inside to 1 to 3. And then you, remember I kept this all loose so I can adjust it. This will slide over that nut. Then it screws down on that lock nut. And here's the, see there's a set line. There's that line right there. And that is in number 2 position. You see that little booger of a yellow? That needs in the middle. Number 2 needs to be right middle into those two. That's how you know you're set for your 3 speeds. And last but not least, this one has a fill up on the outside with a 10 millimeter nut on the inside. Then you just lock your brake down. Make sure it's tight. You don't want that to come loose because this brake arm comes loose and you hit the brake, this arm will flip around and spin and you will not have any braking. like so. So remember those cable guides? Well, now I want to make sure my cable feels good. Work my way up from the back forward so it's not too loose anywhere. So I had 2 on the bottom, so I want to make sure those are nice and tight. Like so. Then I got 3 in the down tube here. Get that. And that way we have a perfect scenario. Plus you don't want that cable to flop out and get in the binding of the crank because you don't want to chew that cable up. Look how cool that is. All right. And the front wheel, last but not least, I think I said that already, but really last but not least, these have those lawyer tab gaps washers. So you got to get those on there. And I'm going to put these cool fancy lug nuts. Lug nuts, that's what I looked them up. They're lug nuts. So you wanted to get those spacers on the outside, push them into the gap that they slotted into, and you just tighten down both sides and make sure the wheel is straight. Crank away. So now, pretty much all I have to worry about is getting some grips in the kickstand. And oh yeah, valve cover. I ordered them, the 8-ball valve covers, but they did not show up, so I'll have to check and see. Guess that 99-cent special wasn't so special. So this will rock back and forth, so that's why you need 2 15 millimeters. And then we have it. Right on. Well, here's our badass 8-ball 3-speed ceramic coated frame and fenders, painted cranks. Got some new lug nuts, new chain on there. It's all pretty fancy, making sure it's all spaced out right. Everything's put together correctly. Added some rubber tape up here so when it bumps into the frame, it's not a metal on metal contact. So minimal lift is just the kickstand and the grips. Anywho, it's not always a win, that it's mostly a win. Until next time, we're going to cruise through your neighborhood. But until then, have a great day. And if it's nice in your neck of the woods, go for a ride. Enjoy the day. And thanks for hanging out in the garage with me. Until next time, in the garage.